Well, figured I'd get back on here and try to explain something and see if it makes sense to you. There's a lot of people that get on this YouTube thing, and I just call it bullshit. I mean, I'm not saying God doesn't talk to people. Maybe gives them visions or dreams or so on and so forth. I'm saying that it happens, but most of them I question. They make all these predictions, and then it doesn't come true. So if it doesn't come true, obviously they're not talking to God, but maybe they think they are. I don't know. I really can't speak for them. But it's like a lot of these people get on here and the world comes to an end now. The financial system, everybody's going to be wiped out in 2 weeks. Everybody's going to be wiped out, tomorrow. Bulb, God, do this by Monday because if you don't, you're going to. You hear all this stuff, fear mongering and clickbait stuff, and just to get some stupid rating or whatever, just to make a their little what was it, a little bit of silver, selling your soul just for a little silver. You see, when you give your life to Christ, to God, and you start doing God's will, not your will, God's will. You start doing what He wants you to do in life, and everything what you want to do is not even secondary. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even count because what you're doing God's work. You're doing God's will, and people they they still think they have when you're actually doing God's will, God's work. You lose your identity. You don't have one. You become transformed, and God is the one that guides you. He's the one that basically sends you on a mission, or something. It's not you, say. And the old person that you were ceases to be. And that's how I kind of look at people that, they're so holier than thou and this and that kind of stuff. And they want to make predictions and all these things. And they're wrong. And you look at them and they're like, it's still them. It's still me and I and this and that stuff. It's not, it's like you begin to question who you are because you're not who you were. God has come into your heart, to your soul, and He has transformed you into another being or a thing. I mean, you're worshiping Him. Hope I'm making sense. It's like you see these mega churches. These people get up there and, I mean, man, the suits and ties and dresses and shoes and stuff they wear. I mean, it's custom made thousands and thousands of dollars and stuff. And then they fly around on these jets and we're not talking about I mean just any jet. I mean luxury jets. I mean jets are expensive anyways, but still it just can't be a coach. You know, and they drive up in the expensive cars and they have to stay in 5-star, accommodations and eat, I don't know who, fancy chef's food, that you could have probably fed a village in Africa for, what it costs. Thousands of dollars. You could probably walk in with a month's worth of food for some village for what that plate cost. You see, these people, they're still them. They're not. They haven't transformed. Because when you transform, you become more Christ-like. Even though God created the universe, Christ was poor. He didn't own anything. He didn't have a house that I know of. He slept in any accommodation he could find. People fed him. He'd walk by and, they'd forage some fruit off of a tree or whatever. But then again, on the other side of the coin, everything was his. The whole universe was his. He owned everything, but he was the poorest person in the world. I mean, that's some kind of, big, huge oxymoron there, And that's kind of like with these people, they run around and they say great swelling words and take advantage of people, and people all clap and give them all this money and stuff, and then they climb on these expensive planes and all that, like I explained it. I'd like Jesus. He didn't need a fancy church. He didn't need a cathedral. He didn't need all these things. And what amazed me is back then in those days when he gave his sermons, they only counted men. So when they said there was like 5,000 there, it was like, well, yeah, men. Well, let's say there's wives or girlfriends. I guess girlfriends back then. I don't know. But let's say there's 10,000. And then let's say each one of them had a kid or 2 kids or what. There could have been 15, 20,000 people there. I mean, you look out, and it's just like, how does everyone hear you? They didn't have megaphones. They didn't have speakers. They didn't have all that stuff. They didn't have big screen TVs sitting up here. No. But everybody heard the message. That right there's like, how do you explain it? You can't. Because it's a miracle of God. And what's funny is God walked everywhere. I mean, that one day, you'll find this mule, get this mule at such and such thing, and I'll ride into town, That, but I mean, most of the time, he could have had a camel, he could have had a horse, he could have had anything he wanted, but he walked. These people, they got to have the most fancy thing they've got. So when you sit back and you look around, and if somebody looks at you and says, they've been in the ministry a long time, and they're not rich, they don't have much, they're poor, and they've done God's will to the best of their ability, and they're almost like, they sit back and they're like, they really they don't know who they are, because they didn't do this for them, and they didn't do this for them, and they didn't go and have this job and this title and all these things because they serve God. And when that happens, God has transformed you. It's not you. It's not about you. It's about serving God and God's will. So next time you look at these people, take a good look. Listen with your ears. It's just popped into my head. Denzel Washington. Everybody knows who Denzel is. I mean, great actor. Well, I like him anyways. Anyways, I was telling this story, and he had a couple, big movie roles. He was on his way. It was early in his career. He goes home to his mom. I'll probably screw it up. You'll just have to try to find it on YouTube, but I'll probably screw it up. I'm just kind of like paraphrasing. But anyways, he goes home to his mom, and he starts talking about, oh, I did this, and I did this wrong, I'm this, and I'm this, and, blah, blah, blah. And she stops and looks at him and goes, I hear a lot of I out of you, but there's a whole lot more people out there that have been helping you and backing you and everything else. The church has been praying for you. I've been praying for you. All your friends, everybody been praying for you. And you think you did all this yourself? God did this, and it's like, yeah. Then she looks at him and says, okay, superstar, go wash those windows. Yeah, I guess he picked up the bucket and go wash the windows. It's like, yeah, superstar. And Mom brought him back to earth and humbled him. It's great listening to him tell the story. It's much better. But that's the thing. When you're serving God, it's not I, or me. It's God. All glory goes to God. If I say anything halfway intelligent, it's not because of me. It's because of God. You say? I tried to touch on that the other day when I said, you don't own anything because God owns you. God died on the cross for you. He paid for you. Well, if God did that and He owns you, that means everything around you, everything is His. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to God. You might let it be in your, quote, care. You might be a caretaker, but that's it. You're just a taker. You didn't build it. You didn't make it. It's God did. I always think it's funny how Monsanto sits there and goes, "Oh, our little corn here field, and it cross-pollinated with that field, and now we're going to sue you because you got our a genetically modified bullshit, blah 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 blah." I thought, what the hell? Who invented the kernel of corn? Wasn't Monsanto. It was God. Did you ask God if you can go in there and mess with that kernel of corn? No, but you're playing God, aren't you? And now all of a sudden it's I. It's ours. That's ours. It's ours, Well, you'll find out someday, won't you? You got to humble yourself, people. That's all I'm sitting at. That's all it really comes down to. We need to humble ourselves. I don't hear voices. I don't hear voices. I don't think God's ever. Well, if God's talked to me, I've missed it. Okay, I have. I'm pretty thick-headed, so I've missed it. But I'm not saying doesn't he has talked to people. He has come down in human form and talked to people. If he would have come down in some other form or his form, you'd probably scared to death and probably had a heart attack, So it has to come down in something familiar that people can recognize. But I always find it interesting that we don't humble ourselves enough. We did this and we did that. I did this and I did that. You give thanks to God. All glory goes to God. You should thank Him. And you don't need some big, long, drawn out prayer. I know. I love Steve Quayle. Man, I like the guy. He's a great guy. But man, you talk about somebody can do a prayer for an hour or two. Just ask old Steve to do one for you. I'll tell you, man. I thought I was long-winded. I love the guy to death, but you know. But if you ever get a chance, listen to Steve Quayle. He's a good guy. Anyways, you don't have to do these big, long, drawn-out prayers. You know, God already knows. It's simple. You're driving down the road, and you're like, "Thank you, Gord. Thank you, God. Thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you for my life. I mean, just thank Him. Just thank Him. That's what He's there for. And He's there for you to just, communicate with. You know, you got a problem, you give it to God. He will take care of it. He will handle your problems. See, I hate repeating myself because there's a lot of people that watch, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's people that watch my videos and they hear me say the same thing over, like in an older video. But people are funny, they think they're important to people in their lives and so on and so forth. But a lot of times when you need to do something in life and conquer something in life, it's almost like you got to leave that baggage behind. You see, you got to leave that behind. You got to go on your own path, God's path. And at the very last second, when you're asking God about things and your anxiety or you're fearful or whatever, at the very last split second, boom, God takes care of it. And you're thinking, how did this? You're like, I don't understand. Right. You asked God to take care of it, and God took care of it. Sometimes outcome's not the way we think it should be. But sometimes we got to go down this path a little ways, or maybe just change our path altogether. And that's why you have to pray. You have to ask God. That's the most important thing you can do in life. You got all these people out here prepping for the end of the world. I agree. You should be, it's prudent to have a few things. Do you need a grocery store in your basement? No, no. But you should have a few things, I mean, that's just being prudent, being smart. But ultimately, it's God. They wandered around the desert and that for 40 years, and God fed them. God kept them alive. They didn't plant, they didn't sow, but God kept them alive. There ain't just one or two of them either. There's lots of them. It was always interesting. God gives orders and they're followed. You, me, no one can stop it. And the devil, he's scared to death. He trembles. He knows. He's met God. He knows he's real. He knows he's true. Unlike these people out here, they want you to concentrate on this and concentrate on that and fill your life with bullshit instead of what really matters. And that's your personal relationship with God. That's what matters. So people, just remember that. That's why I don't sit here and do the news. You know, I rarely, I mean, yeah, I might hit on something here or there. But you watch the news guys for that stuff. You know, you watch them on the TVs and they got news 24/7. You hear it on the radios, and then you got all these other little YouTubers out there reiterating all this that you've already seen a dozen times. I mean, I would think you'd get sick of it after a while. And most of it doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything to you. Well, you folks, I pretty much I've said everything I need to say. So, y'all take care.